What's up, everyone? Aaron Nagler here for PackersNews.com, live on Facebook after the Packers drop a two-score game to the New Orleans Saints here at Lambeau Field. The start of the Brett Hundley era gets off to an inauspicious beginning with Hundley. I mean, I don't think there's really any other way to put it than you've spent 3 years grooming your quarterback. You've talked all week about how you have 3 years invested in said quarterback, and then you come out here and pretty much shackle him up. Hundley not asked to do a whole lot in the passing game. The passing game itself was downright meager, with Martellus Bennett as the leading receiver with 17 yards. It tells you all you need to know. Just a really troubling output on the offensive side of the ball. Mike McCarthy, after the game, clearly upset, very upset, in answering a few questions before basically ending the press conference with, "Blame it on the head coach today," which I suspect many will, and then basically saying thanks and walking off. And then you could hear McCarthy slam something just outside the door to the press room. So McCarthy's upset. My mentions on Twitter are filled with people who are upset. I have little doubt that there will be some upset folks here on Facebook today. But as I always do, I've heard from Mike McCarthy, I've heard from Brett Hundley, heard from guys in the locker room, and now I want to hear from you guys. See what's on your minds after, a game that you can't put it any other way than this was a winnable football game for the Packers, despite their struggles in the passing game. Two early turnovers in this one that they failed to capitalize on, but a game that was eminently winnable. And I think McCarthy is right to be upset with himself when it's a game that he got kind of outcoached down the stretch. Clearly played not to lose instead of to win, and it came back and it bit him. So it's going to be a long bye week for these guys. Obviously, a lot of them will get away, and it's a good thing that they do. Brett Hundley did tell us that he's going to stick around Green Bay. I think that's no surprise. But yeah, a lot of work to be done, especially on offense. The defense clearly overwhelmed a little bit there in the second half, down the stretch, not able to get the stop when they needed to. I thought they played surprisingly well early on, even at the beginning of the third quarter. But it's a tough loss. A tough loss when you have to stay afloat just for the minor hope that Aaron Rodgers may return tail end of the season, which I actually highly doubt that happens. But it's a tough one. This is a tough one to swallow, and it makes it tougher that you have to wait not only an extra week because of the bye week, but then you don't play again until Monday night that following week. So it's going to be a long time before we see the Packers back here on the field. This is a tale of two teams, the Pack in the first half and who the hell came out in the second half. Mike McCarthy absolutely agrees with that assessment. He said he was disgusted with what he saw in the second half, both on the field and from himself, play calling wise. So it was definitely a tale of two halves. Why didn't we try the short pass game with Cobb and Adams? That's a very good question. I mean, we saw that on the second drive when they had the 3rd and 1, they tried that short slant to Adams. And after that, there wasn't a whole heck of a lot of attempting anything short. They did come out in 5 wide after that and tried to push the ball downfield a little bit. They had the shot play to Jordy Nelson, which was incomplete. If he puts a little more air under it, I think that's a big completion. Jordy had a step on his guy. But, it's little things like that. And obviously, those are plays that we've seen Rodgers hit that the margin for error is very thin. I thought the plays in the passing game were there, just couldn't execute well enough. I would agree with that, especially in the first half. I thought the second half was, things got really sloppy. But in the first half, I thought, I agree. I think McCarthy dialed up some good stuff. They just couldn't execute. Let's see. His QB sucks, so he had a smart game plan in place. This isn't Bleacher Report. Give it a rest, hack. This isn't Bleacher Report. But that was, let me tell you, that was a Shakespearean comment. Well done. Why was King playing so soft today? Well, Brian, he definitely did get taken advantage of a couple times. You saw him get beat on the sluggo route for the touchdown, although HaHa was probably pretty late as well getting over there. But, you look at what they did as far as playing a mix of man and zone. Yes, he did get beat a couple of times for completions, but there were also a number of times where he's in zone, and it's not specifically his fault that a completion happens. I thought he did a great job in supporting the run game. I thought he did a pretty good job overall, actually. There were, I would say, a handful of plays where he got taken advantage of by one of the best quarterbacks in the game. So I don't think that's a surprise. McCarthy play calling was weak, fourth quarter in particular. I absolutely agree with that. I think the second to last drive was the most kind of mystifying, where they had the run to the left with Jones. They got picked up 3 yards, and then they tried a toss play to the left again. That's when I really kind of wondered, it really felt like he was playing not to lose. Clearly they saw something on tape, because they had Bakhtiari pulling on a few of those plays, which is something they rarely do. So it's something they obviously liked. But in that particular case, Klein's knifed through right where Bakhtiari had been and made a tackle for a loss, and that put him in a 3rd and long, which they couldn't convert. So that, to me, was the real kind of damning sequence that really kind of summed up the day on offense, especially in the second half. Way too conservative with the play calling. I think most would agree. Martinez was the MVP for the Packers again. He is playing lights out football. There's no doubt about it. Now, there are times in the running game where he will make a tackle 3-4 yards downfield, but he's making a ton of tackles. But there are also plenty of times where he's slicing through and making tackles and making plays. But yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that his elevation from year 1 to year 2 has been nothing short of outstanding. What was up with the field goal call before halftime? Yeah, Sean, I wasn't feeling that either. On a wet field, you're going for, what was it, a 56-yarder? I mean, just throw up the Hail Mary at that point, I would think. I mean, they ended up giving the Saints one more shot because they left 1 second on the clock. So, yeah, if that's going to happen, I would much rather he takes a shot at the end zone. So, I wasn't a fan of that. I know a lot of people had questions about the call, the 3rd down call. I didn't hate that. It was a forward vertical call that, for whatever reason, Hundley didn't see Cobb, who looked to be breaking open there at the tail end of it. But, McCarthy's playing aggressive there. And, what have people been killing McCarthy for throughout the years is lack of aggressiveness at times. So, that's a play where if they hit for a touchdown, everyone's cheering. But because they don't get, yardage to help on the field goal, I would have taken a shot towards the end zone there. But Mike called the field goal, and it was well short. Why did they take the play calling away from Martinez and give it to HaHa? Well, that's not strictly true. Martinez was calling plays a lot last year, although they did switch it up on certain weeks. This year it had been Morgan Burnett, but Burnett obviously has been out the last 2 weeks, so HaHa has been the communicator. And once again, much like they did down in Dallas when they gave up the biggest run of the day to Ezekiel Elliott, the Packers had 10 men on the field when Mark Ingram waltzed in for a touchdown off the left side on a play that actually Mike Daniels blew up in the middle where it was designed to go. But it's hard to keep contained when you're playing 10 on 11. That's something that's just inexcusable, and the fact that it's happened now twice in 3 weeks is just unforgivable. I know the defense is complicated, and I know there's a lot of substituting going on, but you can't have that. Packers' defense are poor and can't stop the Saints' offense. Roll 485 yards. I have a real hard time placing this on the feet of the defense. I mean, they got 2 turnovers right away at the beginning of the game. Gave the Packers every opportunity to run away with this one early, but the offense couldn't get out of its own way. So, did the Saints roll a little bit there in the second half? Absolutely, but it's hard for me to say that you're going to lay blame for this loss on the defensive side of the ball. To me, it's Mike McCarthy in the offense. 3rd and long still seems to be our D's weakness. Wade, yeah, they've actually been much better this season getting off the field on 3rd and long. But against Drew Brees, that's always going to be tough. But you did see some takeaways early on. You got a nice takeaway interception from Randall. A great play by Devon House up the right sideline. So, the opportunities were there, and they made the most of them, but the offense just couldn't complement it. Defense had no rest time played. I absolutely agree. That was another aspect of not being able to convert 3rd downs on offense. Meant that, you were punting away. And I thought Justin Vogel, he had another bad punt today, but he also had a brilliant booming punt, which flipped field position. If they can ever get him a little bit more consistent, he is a legitimate weapon as far as flipping the script when it comes to field position. Need Josh Jones to show up. Yeah. Sorry, guys. You saw him, around the ball a lot. He made a few tackles, but he also got enveloped quite a little bit. He got up on by the center and the guards more than a few times, and it was not pretty. And that's the price of doing business when you're going nitro to try and stop the run. But because you're worried about Drew Brees in the passing game. Is Aaron Jones going to be the back going forward? I don't see how he isn't. After his output today, just every time Montgomery comes in, it just seems to kind of slow down the offense more than anything else. His vision is just so much better. His ability to set up the blocks, his cutback, everything about him, it just screams he is a running back, whereas Ty is an experiment, a continuing one. 3rd and 1 and horrible calls to end the drives. Well, I didn't hate the slant call. That's the problem is if that's Rodgers, he probably gets out of it or calls an adjustment there at the line because the Saints were perfectly positioned to break that play up. The 3rd and 1 where they gashed him for 9 yards in the first 2 plays and then up the middle and then they run off tackle off the left. That play had no chance. You're running 5-6 yards to try and gain a yard. I always hate that, but the coaches will tell you the players got to execute, and that is true. But when your formation essentially gives it away, you're fighting uphill at that point. I thought they did do some nice stuff, getting Hundley rolling out. They ran a read option, got him outside the pocket a little bit using his legs. And Brett did say the game plan really focused on running the football, both for the running backs and for the quarterback. But it's 2017. It's the NFL. Your quarterback has to make plays in the passing game, and he was not either doing it or being given the opportunity enough in this game. Any chance Raji can help to supply depth at defensive end? We'll find out. I'll give him a call. Why not just give Cap a call? Make a spark of some sort. Because that's not how the Packers operate. They're going to continue to play Brett Hundley because they are a draft and develop program. And I know nobody cares, and I know that nobody wants to hear it, but they're not just going to chuck their core principles because they want to try and get a spark. They're going to stick with their guy and coach him up and hope for a better outcome and hope for a better job by their head coach. Let's see. Hundley is not good. Alex J. Eddy with the scouting report there. Hundley looked poor. No, there you go. I think McCarthy is trying too hard to keep his job at the expense of being too conservative. Oh, I don't know, Drew. That's an interesting way to look at it. Like I said before, I think this was clearly a case of a coach trying not to lose rather than calling a game to win it. And I do think it bit him in the butt there at the end. I'm not so sure how being conservative helps him save his job. I mean, McCarthy, he's got to win football games, and he's got to do it with this quarterback. And if that's the game plan, and he looks at the defense and he says that this is our best chance, then fine. What I don't understand, and what McCarthy clearly kind of gave credence to in his press conference is he did a poor job of reading the game and reading what was going on, as far as the Saints had suddenly come to life on offense. And McCarthy's still kind of plugging away with his 2 and 3 yard production on first down with the run game. It was not, like in the first half, they were really producing early on in the sticks as far as getting them into some really advantageous situations on 2nd and 3rd down. That's all well and good in the first half, but in the second half, when that's not happening, you got to adjust and you got to start making some adjustments there, and he just didn't. And I think by the end of the game, he really realized it because he was as upset as I've seen him at the podium after this game today. Joe Callahan is ready. I think we're a week or two away from Joe Callahan calls, but you never know. Callahan is a gamer, so we'll see. What does Hundley do well? Run the football. Unfortunately, he plays quarterback. He also, I think, does a really good job of setting protections, doing the stuff at the line of scrimmage that you need to do in this offense. He's got great cadence. And I do think he does an excellent job of keeping his eyes downfield and not looking at the rush. Unfortunately, that seems to kind of bite him sometimes. But that's something that a lot of young quarterbacks have problems with, as far as dropping their eyes the minute they get the football, looking immediately at the rush, not even bothering to get off their first read. I think Hundley does a really good job of standing back there, surveying the field, and then, making a move from there. Whereas a lot of the young guys, especially, guys making their first start in the NFL, would probably get that ball, look at the rush, and go, oh my gosh, and bail out. But I thought he did a really good job of sticking in there. Let's see. Joe Callahan is ready for a lot of incompletions and running for his life. The offensive genius statement is definitely self-proclaimed. I don't think McCarthy's ever called himself an offensive genius. I could be wrong on that. I'm more than happy to have a link sent to me where McCarthy does so. Packers need to improve in run defense. Actually, they've been pretty good against the run this year. They got gashed there in the second half a couple times, but overall, they haven't been terrible. Why can't this front seven get pressure? That is a great question, and that, more than anything, to me today, was the story on defense. I know a lot of people want to talk about guys giving up completions in the back end, but it's not like Drew Brees was under much pressure. I know Daniels hit him once as he let it go, which ended up being a completion. Nick Perry got to him once when Armstead's feet got tangled with his guard and he got knocked over. But for the most part, Brees was back there and he had all the time he needed to survey the field. And that's a really tough way to play corner or safety in the NFL when the quarterback is able to sit at the spot, take his drop, survey everything, and then throw completions. And I thought the Saints had an excellent game plan early on, using all the screens, because you could tell that really messed with guys for the rest of the game where their keys are off and they're looking at, okay, wait a second, is this misdirection? I'm coming in here. You did see Clay Matthews do an excellent job of recognizing the screen in the second quarter where he peels off and causes an incomplete pass. But for the most part, I thought that really kind of messed with the Packers' heads down the stretch. Our wide receivers look pretty pedestrian without A-Rod. It's true. It's very true. Although I would say, Jordy Nelson had his guy beat deep. It's just a better throw from Hundley, and that's a touchdown on the shot play there in the first half. So, that does go both ways. Did I run the ball 6 times or 5? I don't know. So when are we going to let Vince and Montrevious help out? Well, Vince isn't on the 53 yet. He hasn't been placed on the 53-man roster. He did practice for the first time this week. But they have not activated him yet. They have 21 days to do so from his first practice. So I would expect that to happen most likely next week. As far as Montrevious Adams goes, that is a great mystery. And I definitely want to ask McCarthy about it tomorrow, because now he's been a healthy scratch 3 or 4 weeks in a row. And for a team that is desperately in need of help getting to the quarterback, it seems an odd omission. Best way to use Monty going forward? Andy, I think he's a third down back. I really do. A guy who you can use there in the backfield, but when, his best work comes when he's able to be split out into the slot or even out wide, out of the backfield, dictating coverage, and then maybe on draws and screens and things like that. But as a spelling Aaron Jones on first and second down, I don't think that's the best use of his talent. Let's see. What position are we going to upgrade in the draft in the first round? Because it's going to be a high one. Pass rusher, maybe. Who knows? Can the Packers use a screen once in a while? Yeah, I was surprised. They tried one, and it was not pretty. But yeah, for the most part, they didn't run a whole lot of them. And you do wonder about that, because the Saints are traditionally a pretty heavy blitzing team, although they didn't blitz a lot today, and that maybe have something to do with it. D played well enough to win, must score points on turnovers. Totally agree there. Why won't they sign a number 1? Because they have a number 1, Brett Hundley. They drafted him. They've had him on the squad for 3 years. That's who they're going to play with. That's who they are. They're a draft and develop team. I don't make this stuff up, man. It's what they say, and it's what they do, and it's what they believe, and I just tell you about it. Aaron Jones looked good because the Saints' run D is awful. That's part of it. Part of it was the weather. Although the Saints' run D was really good last week against Detroit. Of course, that's in the dome. But there's some of that there. He's torn apart the Cowboys, which they don't have a strong run defense, and the Saints haven't this year, for the most part overall, had a strong run defense. But he also looked good against the Bears, who have had a strong run defense all season. So you know, I think there is some validity to that, but he has looked good no matter who's across the field from them. Could trips, formations, combination routes help Hundley? I would think so, and I think that's the kind of thing that McCarthy needs to do more of, and I think McCarthy maybe came to that realization after the game. I don't know, but it was odd how kind of buttoned up they were, especially in the second half. You're in a 1-point game, you're in a fight for your life, and you're running, you know, off tackle, first and second down, and basically putting your quarterback in, you know, at a disadvantage there on third down. McCarthy again plays not to lose. Couldn't agree more, Mark. What's Hundley been doing in the last 3 years? Learning to play in the NFL. Matt Flynn can win with this team. Brett can't. I'm not so sure about that, Sam. No, we haven't seen Matt Flynn with this team. Draft terribly and develop poorly. Pray that Aaron Rodgers makes it all work. Kenny Clark, Blake Martinez, Josh Jones, Aaron Jones, David Bakhtiari, Mike Daniels. You know, those are all guys that were drafted and developed. These wild proclamations are fun, and I know they're therapeutic, but they're not based in fact. The biggest highlight of the day was seeing Bart Starr and the boys out there today. Yeah, Travis, I got to interview a bunch of those guys Saturday morning for some stuff we're doing for the 50th anniversary of the Ice Bowl. Those guys are an amazing group, and their recollections of that game are pretty incredible. I don't think quarterback play is even close to all of the problems. There's a lot. I agree, but the quarterback play is a big part of it, you know, especially when the quarterback play is at a level where your play caller doesn't feel comfortable putting the ball in the hands of the quarterback. Well, then you better have a dominating run game, and you better have a really good defense. Neither of which materialized in the second half for the Packers. They were productive in the run game in the first half. They were creating turnovers in the first half. That second half came along and it all changed. And if that happens, you've got to be able to put the ball in the hands of your quarterback. In the NFL today, you've got to be able to throw the football, throw it down the field, move the ball, score some points. And they just absolutely refused to do that. And that is on Mike McCarthy, and that is undoubtedly why he's upset with himself. We don't draft terribly, but not everyone develops, and we need to sign more free agents and get with the times. Well, I think you saw a lot of that this offseason. Don't forget, you know, they signed Brooks, they signed Dial, they signed Martellus Bennett. Now, you know, those obviously have worked, some have worked better than others, but, you know, I think it's safe to say Thompson did more this offseason in free agency than he has many for the last few years. BJ Raji at QB, thank you, Michael. There's my cue. Thanks, everyone. I'm so sorry if I couldn't get to your questions. There are a ton of them. They go very fast, but thanks so much for being here. Make sure that you're checking PackersNews.com for all the latest off of this game. And then obviously, the Packers have a bye next week, but I will still be here on Facebook chatting with you fine folks. I'll be on tomorrow. I'll be on again Wednesday and Thursday, just like I always am during the week. And I'll still be doing my mailbag and all that stuff. So make sure you're sticking around for PackersNews.com even throughout the bye week, and then going forward for the Monday Nighter against the Detroit Lions. Something tells me we're going to hear a lot about what went wrong in this one right here today. All right. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a good night.